Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It is me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we are here this week for the final part of our deep dive into the Battle Action Force Annual from 1987. We've been enjoying doing these for the last few weeks. We started like 5 weeks ago, and then we had some interruptions due to illness in our fabulous interview with Word Burglar. But last week we came back to it with the Storm Shadow story, which was insane and fun and murderous and great. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you're new to the show, check out the archives because everything's up there. This is the podcast where I've covered every episode of the cartoons, going all the way up through the Extreme era. We'll eventually get to the more modern stuff. And then we've also covered every issue of the Marvel Real American Hero comic book. And then eventually we will be getting to as much as we can do in this show. You know, been doing the show since 2016, and there's a lot of ground still to cover. So I'm excited for what the future holds. I've really been digging these Battle Action Force stuff. There's just a difference to it that I like, you know, like it's that I've talked about this before on the show. It's that alternate universe version of the Joe team. I'm really having a kick with. And today's story it's the final story in this. It is called Operation Liberty. And I really like the artwork, and there's a reason why the artwork really popped for me. I'll get into that when we get a little closer to reading it. But in the meantime, I want to get a little closer to you, listener. I want you to go out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you're on social media. If you're not on social media, I totally get it. But if you're on social media, reach out and say hello. At Joe on Joe Pod. You can find me Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. If you want to help support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Joe on Joe Pod, and you can help support the show that way. Sign up. You get access to all of the Joe and Joe Illustrateds and all of the regular shows. We are in the middle of revamping that. Hopefully I get that done before Christmas, so everything's a little easier to find. They added some categories which they didn't used to have, so that's really cool. Makes it a lot easier. Yeah, and you know what? While you're on the internet, I want you to go to whatever podcast browser you're using, if it's Apple iTunes, you know, Apple Podcasts or whatever RSS manager, and give the show a rating. You know, the higher the rating, the better. But I'm not going to ask you to be dishonest. I want you to be honest. Give it a rating. More action. Those algorithms get picked up, and the more people see the show. And the show's been growing lately. It's been really great. I'm seeing the numbers, and I appreciate everyone who's out there spreading the good word. So it's really exciting. I also want you to spread the good word about our sponsors, the Movies and a Meal podcast. In the beginning of time, the smallest organism gained sentience and thought to itself, I really need a good meal. Then a bunch of other stuff happened, and finally the Lumiere brothers started showing movies in France. This was all the inspiration that fellow broadcasters Brad, Keith, and Ben needed to combine these two primal needs into the Movies and a Meal podcast. The Movies and a Meal is one of the most casual and relaxing film talk podcasts you could ever listen to. These three friends enjoy a good meal together while talking all about the movies. And not just reviews. They do favorite lists, comparison discussions, genre talks, anything and everything that you can think of. They've even broken their solemn promise inherent in the name and branched out into TV talk. So I love the variety of films they bring to the table. They cover new releases, classics, cult films, often in one episode. It's really a delight to listen to, and it has something for every movie fan out there to enjoy. So if you're looking to grow your podcast library, if you eat meals, and if you've ever seen a movie, then you should give Ben, Keith, and Brad a listen and subscribe to the Movies and a Meal podcast. They've been a great sponsor to this show. I love the Movies and a Meal podcast, and I'd like all of you to love them too. Now, this week in the G.I. Joe world was both exciting and also ended on a downer. Got a bunch of stuff shipped in. Today I got my Thunder Machine Transformers crossover, which I did not keep in the box. I had to open that up. That thing is great. I love it. I love seeing Zartan on a file cart. That's exciting. I think this is my third file carded Zorana between. I think I have two originals. It's for some reason Zorana keeps entering my life on a file card, so that's great. But the toy is awesome. It really transforms nicely, and it looks really cool. So I hope everyone got theirs. But the bummer news was it sounds like there's going to be some layoffs over at our friends Hasbro. So that really stinks. There's always corporate reasons for various things that happen in this world, but it stinks for the employees, and it's always around holidays because it's the end of the year, and everyone's always looking at their numbers. I said this on Twitter. I mean this genuinely. I want to hear a story one day where the corporation, instead of doing layoffs, they figure out how to restructure things, keep the same amount of people, and run their business better. I say that as someone who's been on the management side, who is technically on the management side of my professional life. It's always the people that get cut first because that's the biggest cost base you see sitting there. And it's never the organization that's bloated. It's the people that make up the organization that they look for bloat. And it's gross. And it's especially you see this a lot with publicly held companies. And I say that not to ascribe negative intentions on the parts of any Hasbro management tools. It's just the way that American corporate culture is, and it's really gross. It's I'd rather see a shakeup in the way things are done rather than a shakeup in the people doing them, is what I guess I'm saying. So there's that. Obviously it's a bummer from a collector's perspective, from the consumer, because that must mean that things aren't going well, or there may be some ill omens for the future. I certainly haven't heard anything, or I haven't seen anything on that front. But if there's any Hasbro employees out there listening, we hear you, and we hope you're well, and we hope you land on your feet. Sure, you're talented, and you get a good. Hopefully, you'll land somewhere well, and hopefully they'll take care of you on the way out the door. Someone who's been the product of that over the years a few times, change is great, and change is important, and change is not always your choice. Change is often thrust upon you, and very often it can lead to the next best thing. So more often than not, it really does. So it sucks. Use the opportunity to, use it as an opportunity. Because whatever it is you're going for in life, there's never really one place to execute that vision, that dream. There's a lot of places in the world that can do that. So anyway, word to your mother, for all our Hasbro friends and family out there, if you're listening, we got your back, and you're always welcome in the Joe community. Unless you work for the Transformer side, then get out. Just get out. Just kidding. That's a joke. So anyway, let's get into it. So we've been looking at the Battle Action Force Annual, and in it, they often have reprints of the blueprints for the G.I. Joe. So in this one, it is a Sea Lion. Now, this is not a G.I. Joe toy. This is an Action Force centric specific toy, and it's actually used in this story later on. So that's neat. But it's a boat. It's like a 2-seater boat. It's kind of cool. It is pretty cool. It's got like fuel pods on it and twin jet turbo engines. It's pretty neat. So the Sea Lion, look that up. Also got the command center, and of course, because it's British, it's spelled CENTRE, and that is the traditional G.I. Joe headquarters. So that's pretty great. They have a blueprint for that. They also got a blueprint for the killer whale, and they just call it the hovercraft. They do not call it the killer whale. But you got your blueprints for the sled and the little motorcycle, all that stuff. It's like a condensed version of the blueprints that we got when we had the toy. And then it ends with the Triad Fighter, which is that space thing we saw in the Robo Skull story that went up against the Robo Skull. And this is a crazy future. This is straight out of Battle Force 2000. This toy, where you've got the two pods that split off to the side. So that's neat. I don't feel it fits in G.I. Joe at all. It fits more in like Robotech or Robotics. That's what I'm thinking of. It looks more like a toy from Robotics. Anyway, so those are there. So now we go into Operation Liberty, which is a black and white story Starts with a bang with Zartan in the swamps. Now, the reason I said I really got into this artwork is because I chose to read this without my reading glasses. So I had to have it up like 2 inches from my eyes. And in doing so, however, I really got a good look at this artwork, you know? There were times when I would pull back, put my glasses on to take a better look at it. And, sorry for you making noise here. I'm moving my book around. And then the artwork would take a little bit of a different view. But when you look at this stuff really up close, especially in this case where it's an ink wash, it looks like it's done with brush. Most of it's done, with brush and with a nib pen, quill and a nib pen, and with varying levels of ink washing. With black, you got dark gray hues, you got mid gray, and then you've got really light gray. And when you get that close to that page, there was a moment when I thought there was a ton of zipatone on this, which I am a sucker for good zipatone. And then I really looked close and realized, oh no, there's no way that's all zipatone. That's just the printing process, breaking out into the dots to make the graying of the ink wash. But that's how close my eyes were to this page, ladies and gentlemen, because that's how bad my vision is. Anyway, we open and we're on Cutana Island. It's in the Java Sea, and they have swamplands because Zartan's here. And he's waiting for Cobra Commander's orders. And just like in pretty much all the other stories, these are very toy-centric. Zartan looks exactly like Zartan did in the toy. He's got the same backpack. He's on his swamp skier, which looks exactly perfect to what the swamp skier looked like. His vest looks pretty much the same that his toy did. He's got the same shoulder pads. Like it wasn't like a cartoon version, like inspired by the look of the cartoon or anything. It is a straight up rendition of the toy, which is neat to see. I always enjoy that with these because then it really looks like the toys are coming to life. But Cobra Commander gives him the go ahead, and Zartan skis up to a party of unsuspecting men. Now, there is one dude hanging out in this group of soldiers. They're not G.I. Joes or Action Force, rather. But they're just a group of soldiers, and Zartan says, in the spirit of Greece, you're the one that I want. And he grabs this guy with glasses, and he hauls him away. Now, the next page. So there's a lot of jungle foliage in this. And the other thing I was looking at with the jungle foliage, you know what this art style reminds me of? And for the record, every time I've done these, we've had trouble identifying who the artists are on these stories because they don't credit them in the book so far. John Cooper signed the last one, so we know John Cooper did the Storm Shadow one. I didn't see a signature in this, so we don't know who drew it. So artistically, if you've never seen this, if you're familiar with our friend on the internet who draws G.I. Joes all the time, Yickly Clickly, I've mentioned him before on the show. He's really great, and he does these wonderful, wonderful Joe and Cobra sketches, renderings, or whatever. He's just a super talented artist, a great follow. This stuff really looks like his work. It's got a lot of that vibe to it. Nice brushwork. The backgrounds are really more evocative backgrounds. They're more like Bob Ross, Happy Little Bushes, right? Instead of heavily rendered, foliage, right? So there's lots of open space that is formed by the shadows, by the impressions of plants, right? If that makes sense. Like a lot of the foliage are just brush strokes. They're not they're not drawn leaves. They're just the brush swiping multiple times in the same direction, and you do that enough, all of a sudden you've got foliage. It's really great. I like it a lot. And like I said, when you really get closer, you're like, oh my God, that's so much zipatone, but it's really not. It's really just the printing process. So this guy with glasses gets kidnapped, and we see his name is Sir Basil. These other dudes, I imagine they're French, or I'm sorry, English. They're very upset that he got kidnapped. Now, one of them does say, Basil's like strapped across the swamp skier, but he is certainly held hostage. And one of them yells, "Open fire." Mind you, don't hit Sir Basil. How they intend to do that, I don't know, but that's the instruction. And Zartan gets away. And then breaking cover from the jungle, we've got a whole cadre of swamp ski or moccasins. And again, these look really good. They look very accurate to the toy. Copperhead's in the lead. They start firing upon these soldiers. I'll call them like soldiers of fortune or something. They start firing on them from behind them. And they even yell, "All must perish." So all these people are dead. So this is one of the questions that I first have. If their goal is to kill everyone, I guess it's easier to have one of them, the one they need, kidnapped so they don't have to discern who's who when they kill everyone. I guess that's easier. But like if you're just going to kill everyone, I don't know why you wouldn't just come in and round them all up and then shoot them. Anyway, it's more exciting when you do it by water moccasin. But there's Copperhead. And he says, "It's good. Every engineer is dead. As Cobra Commander wished. Remove the body." So they've killed all these engineers as per Cobra Commander's wishes. And the secret of the mine remains safe in the hands of Cobra. We don't know what the secret is, but Copperhead sure does. The one person escaped. Do we have his name? We don't know his name. But he tells us that Sir Basil's been kidnapped, his team of engineers murdered. Who are these killers? British geologist Sir Basil Dunnington Smythe has taken young Minoka, the son of a... so this is Minoka, and it's a son of his friend on his first trip to the jungle. It's kind of a backwards way to introduce a character, like through the eyes of another character who just got kidnapped and hasn't been... We don't really know anything about him, but... Anyway, Minoka, he runs off to, quote, "tell the president at once." So we don't know president of what, but he's going to go tell the president. Now, finally, Sir Basil is taken face-to-face to Cobra Commander, who is currently living in the depths of the mine. He says, "Welcome to my kingdom on Kutana, Sir Basil. I am Cobra Commander." Says, "You don't interest me, fiend, but you'll pay for the slaughter of my engineers." Cobra Commander says, "That was unfortunate but necessary for my plans. You're clever. You realize there is gold on this island, and you came to investigate this on behalf of the Kutana president. And Cobra's arrived there first, and they've been extracting the gold for weeks. So Cobra's been stealing the gold from the Kutana people, and they've got a bunch of slaves, which this guy's very shocked to see. And the reason he needs this engineer is because he needs to secure the safety of the miners." Nice storytelling here. Nice variety between close-ups and like wide shots. I like that. I think it's a better use of variety, I think, than we saw in the Storm Shadow story last week. The camera pulls back and we see everything. We see full body shots, and then it gets a little closer. And then we see, there's a nice close up of Cobra Commander. You don't see much because it's his metal plated face. So this dude, Sir Basil, he grabs a shovel that's laying around, and he cracks Cobra Commander with it, stealing Cobra Commander's gun. Now he is like, "You're coming with me," so he's going to hold Cobra Commander hostage. But as he does so, Cobra Commander presses a button, and one of his snake armors, they call it the escape armor. It's that armor, the full body armor, the snake armor. It comes to life and it grabs Sir Basil, and literally that is the last we see of Sir Basil. And that's what's weird about this story. So we're in the Kutana presidential palace, and we see Minoka has reached the president. And he tells them all about Cobra. He says they're deadly men. There's no one that can defeat them. Only one crack unit in the world. So this president calls Action Force. Now, this is where the story stops being remotely anything about this guy, and it becomes all about Action Force fighting Cobra. So 48 hours later, we get that sea line, which we saw that cool blueprint of earlier. Is a sea line. It kind of's got the feel of the old not the shark. What was the orange boat? I had two of those. What were those called? The little orange one. It's kind of got that vibe to it, but it's a 2-seater. It's got canopy stuff. It's really kind of cool. But it's Recondo, and who we would call Torpedo, they call Dolphin. And it's funny because, Torpedo, he's from Hawaii. He's got that kind of surfer vibe to him. Here it's Boyo and Pip and Cheerio coming out of Torpedo, which is kind of funny. Ricondo's also got the chin of Sergeant Slaughter, which is great. And he is, I think in this world, Recondo is Australian, if I recall correctly. But they pull up in this scout boat, and they're the advanced team. So they see that as they pull up, there's a couple asps on the beach, and Cobra does not, they're not sneaky at all. Cobra sees them, they immediately blow up that sea lion. I had to refresh myself on the name of that. That immediately gets exploded. So we think that our boys are dead, but then a hovercraft shows up, and again, the whale is drawn completely to specs, man. That's a good looking whale. We've got Duke, leader of the Action Force unit, and he's with, do they say, well, there's Flash, apparently he's in there. But they see Recondo and Dolphin die, and they think they're dead. They see their ship blow up. So Duke is, he wants his revenge, and Duke takes charge. I want to hit fire on the missiles that will kill these Cobra troopers, and he does so. He takes it over from Flash, and we get a nice little explosion. Again, death tolls, man. Action Force has so much more actual on-page death than G.I. Joe ever did. It's really wild. So as the hovercraft hits the beach, we get a very cool toy moment, which we didn't really see a lot of in, I think in the regular G.I. Joe thing, where the front of, how the front of the whale opened up and it was a ramp. We see that mid open. So it's not just open and everyone's running out. We see it actually cracking open in this. The detail on the whale is very nice. Who do we got? We got Gung Ho, who, oh no, it was Rock and Roll, who was called something else. Gung Ho is here. Scarlet is here. Flash. And look, Recondo is alive. So, how did you survive that asp onslaught? It's funny, like we're taking time to show how they survived in the previous page instead of just like, we ducked out. Like it's a fun little feint. But I think they do it because it's a toy moment. That's why I think they're doing this. So Dolphin / Torpedo has a little flashback window, and he says, what we slipped through underwater on the Sea Lion sub-sea vehicles, which makes me think those were actual, and they're like little like mini jet sleds, like jet ski sleds, like it must have been part of the toy. So I have a feeling that was part of the toy that popped off the Sea Lion, and so then they give him a little flashback to talk it up for the reader, which is kind of neat. So Duke and the unit, they go through the jungle. Now, there are a lot of green shirts with the Joes here. It is not, I think, I do see Stalker in there. It's not just named Joes. There's a lot of green shirts, and that is for a reason. It comes into play very quickly. But they're traipsing through the jungle, and they come to a rope bridge. Now, this rope bridge is great, very reminiscent of Temple of Doom. Except the rope bridge on Temple of Doom was 5 times more safe than this rope bridge. There are no handholds on this rope bridge. It is literally just the walking part across a huge ravine. There is nothing to keep this rope bridge from flipping, you know what I mean? Like doing a complete 180, 360 twisting and it turning. There are no supporting ropes to keep it still. That is nuts. But the Action Force is going to do it. So this next page, really, the art on this is really great, and it's really evocative. It's just lush and well done, especially for pen and ink. For brush and ink. It's the slats on this bridge. They're just ink strokes. They're just black strokes. We think it probably took him maybe 45 seconds to do this whole thing, and it just carries you across this image. I really like it. On top of them are all the Joes in line. why they would. I mean, it's the most dangerous, perilous drawing of people crossing a bridge I've seen in ages. And yeah, they do it. So they get to the other side. Not everyone yet, though, because all the name players go first, right? Duke, Rakondo, Gung Ho, Stalker. But as they're doing that, on a rock ledge overlooking the gorge, it's Destro shows up, and he says, "We have them lured into the trap, Cobra Commander. Your fate is sealed, Action Force." And Destro leans over an old school TNT dynamite blow up box, and that bridge explodes. Now, what's fantastic about this explosion? Well, one, sadly, all those extra green shirts they brought, they all die, and they do. They die. They fall to their death. But the explosion, it's not like set on the ropes that would support the bridge. The explosion comes from the center of the bridge. So Destro had someone, or did himself, go out to the middle of this precarious bridge, line the underside with explosives, I'm assuming. And can we see him in that one panel? No, I don't think we can see him. Although there's a little mark in the middle, in the top, that could be the explosives hanging out. To be honest, I got to be honest, but it looks more like I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? The explosion came from the middle of the bridge. It is huge. It's not enough just to cut the rope and let everyone die. He had to blow them up first. That is bloodthirsty. Is my point, ladies and gentlemen. So as a signal, all the Cobra troopers, they come running out, and these are your traditional Cobra soldiers with the helmets and the bandanas on their face. They come running out of the gold caves, and they're shooting at the Joe team. Fang helicopters show up. They pin the Joes down, and with the bridge gone, there's no way to retreat. Duke apologizes for literally walking them into a trap. And Scarlet wonders where Ace is. Now, Ace is showing up in the Sky Striker, and strangely, this does not look on model. It doesn't look terrible for an like an F-14, but it actually doesn't look on model for the toys, and that's the weird part about it, because everything else is so key. These fangs are really great on model, and the Sky Striker it doesn't have the right canopy shape for my money. But they do a great job with everything else. So I'm wondering if they drew this from the toy, or if they did it from a rendering that someone had of the toy. But Ace shows up. Now, his missiles knock out the fangs, and they all die. There's no parachutes in this, to be sure. But then what happens on the next page, which is fantastic, the fangs then fall on top of the Cobra troopers, murdering the Cobra troopers. So not only Ace took out both the air and then half of the ground troops, which then allows Action Force to charge forward. They say, I think it's Flash that says that got rid of them. We'll thank Ace later. And Duke's like, the way into the mine is clear, but before Duke can enter, out walks Cobra Commander. He's got a little remote control. Cobra Commander has a lot of remote controls in this. He says, don't celebrate too quick. You see, this is a deadly device. One push of my finger, and it will detonate a bomb in the mine, killing Sir Basil and the slaves. So to avoid such a catastrophe, you must allow me to escape in my personal fang. Your choice, my life, or theirs. So he's giving him that ultimatum. Now, this is different from what we talked about was it last week or whatever, where like the bad guy gets away and the Joes just kind of go, well, we'll get him next time. This actually is a legitimate, if you follow me, I'm going to blow everyone up. So I'm very cool with this getaway. A nicely rendered Fang shows up. It looks like Destro's driving it, piloting it rather. And it magically becomes a 2-seater once Cobra Commander jumps on. And Stalker reminds him, it's the only thing you could have done, Duke. But of course, because they're Cobra as they're flying away, the bomb is strong enough to blast you and the mine together, so I'm going to blow you all up anyway. Except for here comes Scarlet with a nice throwing star and a great angle on this art. It's a high angle on Scarlet with the throwing star taking your eyes up to the right of the page. And she has perfect aim. She knocks the remote detonator out of Cobra Commander's weaselly hand. And Duke runs over and catches it. It's great again, rendering they give Duke his toy machine gun, that submachine gun he had on the toy is the gun that Duke's carrying here. So that's really nice. So he jumps and he catches it. And as Cobra Commander flies away, everyone's shooting at him, and they miss him and all that stuff. So Operation Liberty is over, guys. But I have a guess: the fight against Cobra still goes on. Now, again, I dig this artwork. It is really nice. Like it's just lush. I guess it's just lush. It's really strong. Lots of solid blacks in places that need to be, and then the ink washes work well to delineate all the figures. And then the evocative backdrop, the evocative jungle. Like it's just a few lines that, oh yeah, that's a tree. That's obviously a tree. Oh yeah, that's a palm tree. Oh yeah, that's a bush. That works perfectly with these like heavily realistic to toy rendered figures. I like it. So you guys should really check this out. It looks great. But you see what I mean? Sir Basil doesn't show up again. He gets a brief mention, but the story isn't about actually rescuing Sir Basil. No one cares about Sir Basil. It was about stopping Cobra. And frankly, Cobra's been there for weeks. They've gotten all that gold. I'm assuming they've gotten it out of the mine. So they've collected all the gold. G.I. Joe didn't stop the gold. G.I. Joe didn't catch up and say, you can't take this gold. G.I. Joe said, you can't take more of the gold. So I call that a victory for Cobra. Let's be fair. Yeah. So Cobra, and really, if you look at it, Cobra was in a, I guess, lose-lose situation either way. Because if they didn't kidnap that guy, the mine would have collapsed and killed all the slaves, and then their gold operation would have stopped. If they do kidnap the guy, which they did, and they get him to build buttresses to support it, yes, they would get more gold, but then that results in people knowing that he's been kidnapped. So then their thing stops anyway. So Cobra was going to stop stealing the gold anyway, whether they realize it or not. Their gold days were numbered. And all Action Force / G.I. Joe, all they did was show up to clean up, I guess. That's all they did. And then lose a bunch of green shirts. So I love it, though. It's a lot of fun, man. Action Force Annual. I urge you guys, go on eBay and pick these Action Force Annuals up, or go to, you can Google around. There's scans of this stuff out there. You can check those out for free, of course. They're really a lot of fun. Next week, I don't know what we're going to do, but we are going to do another Action Force Annual. I got 3 in front of me. I think the next one would be 88 or 89, or which one we did one of them. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't have it on me. But listen, you guys are great. Thanks again for listening. And now you, Joe. And Joeing is half the battle.